What do we love most about our home? I would have to say it's the sense of history that is just, it's so much a part of our everyday life. And you don't really feel like you own it. You feel like you're a steward of it. My name is Heidi Hendricks.
And I'm Rafe Churchill, and we live in Sharon, Connecticut.
When we first moved here, we used to go for these long, slow drives around the back roads just to get to know the area. And one day we drove by this house and we were just smitten. And it had already started to fall into disrepair, but we just thought that it was so magical and imagined the family that lived there and the life they had.
And you're gonna start the day running a mile, maybe 2 miles a day.
Ooh, me. Thank you, Lily. Friend. All right, who wants their vitamins?
So sweet.
We call our family home Ellsworth. The house is a mix of New England vernacular from 1800s up through 1920.
So one of the first things we did when we bought the house is we tried to figure out exactly how old it is. So the best way to do it is really go to the attic and go to the basement. So we went to the attic, and then we opened up the walls, and we're able to see the quality of the timber frame work, how the timber frame was milled.
And in fact, there's what I call graffiti in the attic, which has the name of the resident at the time in the year 1877.
The house was originally built in 1825, and the original owner, Eben Chaffee, and his family founded the Magnolia Sharon Land Company.
At that time, it was a 1,500-acre dairy farm, so it was quite a significant operation.
In the late 1800s, there were homesteads throughout the landscape, and they were pretty much divided by stone walls. So one of the first things we did was we hired someone to clear the overgrowth.
They went and brush hogged around the perimeter of these fields and exposed all of these beautiful rock walls, which were probably a couple hundred years old. And they've just been sitting there, you know, completely concealed by this overgrowth. In 1865, Herbert Chaffee was born, and he would become one of 4 generations living in this house. Later, Herbert Chaffee and his wife boarded the Titanic, and unfortunately, he did not survive, but she did. So the property was transferred to his brother, who then operated the property as a dairy farm.
The house originally was a Greek revival, and if you look at old photos, it's very much a Greek revival. It did have a front porch, but when it changed ownership, that second owner drastically renovated the house, and there's a long front porch across the front, but they also changed the roof line. So stylistically, it's changed from Greek revival to leaning much more Victorian. You can see the scroll work and the trim on the windows and the shutters. And then as you walk through the house, the trim changes from room to room.
When we first walked into the house after we had, signed for it, we walked through and planned out how we were going to renovate, what we were going to be doing. And from that preliminary walkthrough, very little changed. One of the reasons why we gravitate towards old houses, and this one in particular, is just being able to see the patina of time, and especially when we can, save some of that. Starting with the entryway, as people were received, that's where they wanted to put on the show. So those were the more refined rooms with the more detailed architectural trim.
This was here. I mean, that's why I was convinced that we could, pull it off, right? This was all here. The scroll work was here. All this millwork was here. But we replicated the millwork. So we took pieces of this millwork, had knives made in a mill shop, and then we ran off, a couple hundred feet of molding profiles
This is one of those charming details behind Rafe's head here, where this is the original trim on the door, and look what the carpenter did. He was just like, I'm just gonna carry it over here on the next wall. The thing about an old house is you never really know what you're going to uncover. There was wall-to-wall dark red carpeting.
Shag.
Shag carpeting. There was no flooring underneath the carpeting, just some, subflooring of some kind. We would later put chestnut flooring down there that we got from this room when it was a barn. A lot of these older houses, they had a lot of doors, and they often were very narrow doors, and it had a lot to do with how they were heating the houses back then.
In the living room, we had to make modifications to doorways.
So we knew we wanted this to be a more contained space. So one of the first things we decided was we needed bookcases. So Rafe designed these bookcases. And we wanted to cut down on the passageways out of the room, just make it one way in and out, which is that larger passageway that you see over there. But in the dining room, it was very similar, just removing some doors and replacing them with windows or just taking out doors altogether.
We went from 7 to 4 doors.
That's right.
So the goal is to embrace what's there, so we match windows.
I mean, some of them have like this beautiful undulating surface. It's a little bit wavy. And I mean, that's another indication of an older house when you look through the window and it's not crystal clear,
So, it's our own house. We aren't caught up in like everything being perfect. We want this stuff to be less than perfect.
And then when we came into the kitchen, this was a painted floor. It was painted this sort of arsenic green color.
There's still remnants of that.
Yeah, you can still see it in the
joints.
cracks. That's another detail that we just love, that you could tell the history is in the wood. When we changed the kitchen, that was the most extreme. It was materials from the 70s that just didn't wear well.
Trapezoidal island,
Yeah.
and the sink was in there, and
Yeah.
so we gutted it, we sanded the floors, and we designed the kitchen, the beadboard paneling. One of the reasons the beadboard paneling was even brought in was because Heidi was super excited about hanging these copper pots on the wall.
Yeah. The back staircase is one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, no, and the railing.
The back of the house, which was more utilitarian and practical, would get more and more pared down. Okay, now we get to come into the sunroom, which is the last project we completed on the house.
Historically, there was a barn in the back of what is now our sunroom, and so the house was connected to an actual outbuilding, so you didn't have to go outside. So you would walk from, the main house to another room, and the spaces would become less and less finished, and that's really what I love about it. The second floor above us had tiny little rooms with beautiful plaster walls, chestnut floors, and little tiny doors. And the chestnut flooring from the front hall
What's on top of
was
this?
the flooring on the second floor. This looks like a structure that was possibly relocated and then attached to the building. And that was to accommodate the third generation. I think this is the oldest part of the house. Yeah. The log joists, definitely kind of dated as being older than the rest of the house. We exposed much of the timber frame throughout, so we have a sense of the age of the house in that sense, but this is definitely the oldest part. The kitchen and where there's a bedroom above, that seems to be the one that follows, and then the front of the house is clearly the most recent.
The dairy barn on the property is a monumental dairy barn. The downstairs, when we first acquired the property, it was in very rough shape.
So here's the big barn when we bought the place. And it was totally overgrown, and it had additions off to both sides and even a little thing on the front.
It was so beautiful, even when it was so rough.
The roof line had dropped about a foot. It was starting to actually collapse. So we put the roof on and reinforced the structure. Then a year later, we got into the overall structure. So one of the things that attracted us to this house is that there were significant mature trees on the property.
For Christmas last year, Rafe's brother gave us a gift that was something he found in a local antique shop, and it was actually a photograph of this house, probably from the early 1900s. And those same trees are there, but as saplings in comparison. The house has a sense of history, and living here with our family is just very optimistic. It just sort of feels like we've created something for our family, and we only look ahead to how they'll inhabit the home, in our golden years.